We're recording. Welcome to Weekday Somatics. It would be I think it would be quite nice if we could begin just to be together in silence, just for a few minutes. You don't have to worry. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way to be in silence. So you may have your eyes open or closed. You may be lying down, sitting, comfortable, uncomfortable. There's no right or wrong way, but let's just take a moment just to be together in this silence so that we can allow ourselves to be moved from this silence. So we first just can familiarize ourselves or reacquaint ourselves with this silence. I can put on the headphones because I've become clear to me we're not going to do what I thought. So let's so there are many things that might happen. One possibility, you might instantly find yourself completely silent, There might be a profound recognition of this silence as your true nature. Maybe at the other extreme, you might observe a lot of agitation. But actually, the agitation that can happen isn't really a problem. We just tend to think it is. So we can start to look at what the actual agitation is, and this is really, now this is subtle, but this is so useful to recognize, and it's really at the heart of the somatic inquiry. So whenever any kind of agitation presents itself in our experience, we can begin to observe that agitation. And we can allow that agitation to be our guide. It's a pointer. It's a great blessing when we become aware of agitation, because it offers us it's a thread that all we have to do is just follow, very gently follow that thread to its source, and it resolves. It's a guide. It's just showing where there's some unnecessary effort being made. Out of habit, we do the opposite. Out of habit, we try to get away. We try to avoid. We try to reject. We distract. We do all of these things. We become immersed in our stories about it. We become very fearful, so that we wrongly imagine that it's some terrible monster coming to attack us. And then we can fall into this trap of victimization. Poor me. Why me? It's not fair. Life is so hard. Life is so terrible, so unbearable. I don't know how to do it. I can't hold on any longer. So when the agitation presents itself, we can now begin to see that differently. In the Q&A yesterday, we briefly looked at this. We looked at, if symptoms seem to disappear or diminish, or we say, oh, things seem to be going more smoothly in my life. I feel more confident, happier, more peaceful, clearer. And maybe just a small amount. Okay. But we sense some kind of improvement. And then the agitation presents itself again, maybe seems bigger, scarier. The temptation is to indulge all of the old habits. However, we now, all of us, have this capacity for observation before we can actually, what do we say? Look before you leap. It's an English, American English, at least, expression. Look before you leap. We have this capacity to look before we leap. Before, we just would leap, Anytime the agitation presented itself, it would say, leap, and we did. Run, and we did. Hide, and we did. Yell, scream, kick, cry. And we would do whatever it commanded. But now we have this capacity to look, to observe, because we recognize that it have the direct experience that what we think about our experience turns out not to be true. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to observe and set yourself up in the best way possible As I suggested recently, I think it's useful to see yourself and to hold yourself as a newborn baby. So it's very gentle, very, very gentle, very loving. The newborn baby is so innocent. We have so little expectation of the baby, and that's what it means to be gentle, to not have expectation. We only become violent when we have an expectation that's not met. So let's just be so gentle and have no expectations of ourselves. There's no should here. There's no you should do anything. At the same time, there's this fine line that we want to be exploring, where we're not indulging our habits of judgment and expectation and harshness and reactivity and all of that. But we're also not seeking to discover comfort through circumstance. So we're not expecting, just as we're not expecting of ourselves, neither are we expecting of the circumstances. We're not expecting that the circumstances, the conditions, the external should do anything for us or give us anything. That what it is that we truly are wanting at a deep level isn't going to be provided through that, so we can let go of that. And in terms of a posture, what that means is, if it's possible to sit upright without strain, then do so. And if it's not presently, let me rephrase that. It is possible for every one of us to sit upright without strain, regardless of what you think. You have all these reasons why you cannot. And you think that those are good reasons. You think that those are good justification. None of them are. Not a single one of them is true. So everybody here can. But you may not yet recognize that. So you can't push yourself into that recognition. That's too violent. It won't work. But you can surrender into that. You surrender into that wherever you are. So if presently the conditioning is such that it's so loud and you're so fearful that you don't have confidence in your ability to sit upright, then okay, don't push. You're not going to yell at the newborn baby, you must sit upright. But we want to find this posture that allows us to be presented with the agitation. So we want the objections to arise. We want the complaints to arise. We want all of the justifications, the stories, the reasons why I can't, why it's too hard, why life is not fair, all of that. We want those to present themselves, but in a way that we can receive so that we're not overwhelmed. So it's up to you. You find that posture that's appropriate for you now and just commit to it. Let it be something you can commit to. For the next 20 minutes, you are committed to it so that you're not going to collapse because you are setting yourself up to be overwhelmed. And if this seems challenging, well, yeah, this is the inquiry. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to your lower abdomen. Just become aware of the lower abdomen. And for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to keep our attention in the lower abdomen. Now notice where your attention goes and what thoughts, images, and sensations appear when you direct your attention to the lower abdomen. Or maybe you notice some resistance to that. Maybe whatever you notice, just notice that. So this is this is important because because this conditioning is stored there. When you direct your attention there, the conditioning presents itself to you. You don't like this conditioning. So your habit is to avoid it. Notice how you avoid it. Notice the gripping. Notice what you call discomfort. This is how you try to avoid it. There are stories, images that will appear if you are open to them. It's not hard. Just be restful. Keep the attention there lightly. So the attention is just lightly going to the lower abdomen while you remain still in this posture. So you are not introducing any unnecessary effort. You're not moving. You're committed to this posture. Now, obviously, because our guiding light is gentleness, if you begin to become overwhelmed, there's no pressure here for you to endure anything. Don't strain. It's a fine line. You don't want to push, but you don't want to spoil the baby either, right? You don't want to spoil the baby. What do I mean by that? Just because the baby is uncomfortable, you can't be seeking to always coddle the baby's fears. You have to support the baby, hold the baby lightly, gently, lovingly, so that the baby knows that the baby is here, is supported. So we're committed to the posture in this way. We're committed to the posture in this way of holding this newborn baby with gentleness. We can hold ourselves in this posture with that same gentleness so that the posture becomes buoyant. So again, the attention is with the lower abdomen. And as I was saying, the stories can present themselves. What do I mean by stories? I mean a wide variety of things. So it could be images about how the body looks. You might have an idea of if the body is upright or not, or if the body is aligned or not, or if the body is correct or not. You might have all of these ideas, these images, these stories that you have. And so you can just be aware of that. Notice if there are any impulses that arise to try and fix anything, to try and correct something. And remember that we're just remaining still and restful. Now, that does not mean that the body might not move. But the body, if the body moves by surrender, not by effort. So as you become aware of unnecessary effort, you are welcome to surrender that. but don't make any effort in a misguided attempt to surrender, because that's not surrender. That's still you trying to do it. That's you trying to succeed. It's just self-effort, and it never works out. So be willing to surrender, not deceive yourself. Now, continuing to allow the attention to remain with the abdomen, with the lower abdomen. Also, now, well, let me say that might be enough. So don't take my instruction if it's not appropriate for you. If you are able to do so, then in addition to that, you can also become aware of the breath. Just notice the breath as you perceive it in the lower abdomen. So you could, of course, become aware of the breath anywhere throughout the body, maybe even outside of the body. But here we're focusing specifically on the breath in the lower abdomen. Now, don't do anything to try and increase the sensation of the breath in the lower abdomen. Don't try to direct the breath to the lower abdomen. Just become aware of the breath in the lower abdomen. You might think that you can do that, or that you can't do that, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just be willing to be open to that instruction, to that direction of just being aware of the breath in the lower abdomen. And as you are aware of the breath in the lower abdomen, see that it's possible to allow for the breath to be unhindered in the lower abdomen. Now, almost certainly, it's very hindered presently. So don't mistake what I'm saying to suggest that your present experience is the experience of an unhindered breath in the lower abdomen. I'm saying that it's a possibility. It's a possibility for all of us right now, regardless of what you think, regardless of how many problems you think there are, regardless of how many obstacles or whatever justification you have for holding all of that strain in the lower abdomen. I'm telling you truthfully that for every one of us presently right now, it's a real possibility, a real experience, not one invented in imagination, but an actual experience available to all of us to discover a completely unhindered breath, natural breath in the lower abdomen. How is that possible? Well, let's explore just through our awareness whatever seems to be in the way of that. Now, for most of us, the old way, the conditioned habit is to layer more effort and strain on top, trying to fix or correct something. And what I'm proposing here is a different direction. It's to observe those impulses to layer unnecessary effort and to surrender all of those impulses. So as you become aware of the sensations, the impulses to contract, the stories that surface to justify and maintain the strain, just be aware and do nothing. Don't engage with them. Remain restful. So you'll start to notice how there's this hint of some phenomenon arising, just the very beginning hint of it. And then you can start to observe how you leap into engagement with it out of habit, compulsively, and you overlook that you're leaping. But here you can be aware of that. So observe how every arising impulse is, you are aware of it at subtle levels. You are aware of it actually at such a subtle level that you can recognize that you are not engaged with it. It's only a habit that says that it's actually happening. This is a subtle point, but it's very useful to recognize that we get spooked by these phenomena because we believe that they're already happening. We believe that we're already entangled in them. We believe that this restriction is happening to me. This discomfort is happening to me. This pain is happening to me. So what's truly miraculous is that we can actually discover presently, and I'm sincere in this, each and every one of us can discover right now that none of that is actually happening. We discover that more and more clearly as we just lightly, gently remain restful and observe. And specifically here, we're observing the lower abdomen, and if possible, also observing the natural breath in the lower abdomen and allowing that natural breath, the very gentle, subtle flow of it. Maybe it's not so gentle or subtle at first, but it becomes gentle and subtle. We can become, so let me give that instruction. Don't force anything, but do allow it to be very gentle and subtle. The breath does not need to be nearly as dramatic as it is out of habit. So just by being aware, we can notice there's a habit. The habit is to leap into the fire from this with these false assumptions. The assumption is this is already happening. It's already happening to me. I'm already wound up. I'm already tense. I'm already uptight. I'm already straining. I'm already in pain. It's too late. Now I've got to fix it. Now I've got to work hard. I've got to brace myself. All this nonsense. Not nonsense I buy into far too often as well, by the way. But we can observe and notice that it's not even happening. It's just a habit of assuming that it's happening. Notice what's closer, what the actual experience of yourself is. You are aware of the impulse. This impulse has not even taken form yet. It just hints at something. Notice that the thing that it hints at doesn't exist. You say it exists, but it's only a habit. You say, but I experience the pain. And I'm saying, no, look more closely, more gently, and you'll see you are not experiencing pain. There's an impulse that you assume is pain. And then what follows is that you leap in, you engage, you grip. Now suddenly the body is reacting. The body now is gripping. But notice that all of that is actually just happening in imagination. Now that seems crazy, I understand, until it doesn't. But it's possible to recognize that all of that is happening in imagination, and it's the wrong use of imagination. So we're now observing our imaginative process. And we're allowing ourselves to recognize it at subtler and subtler levels so that we can actually see this is a real experience that's possible. So it's a non-imaginative experience. So everything else that we've done in our lives is imaginative. What I'm pointing to is a real experience of yourself. It is a real experience of yourself. Nothing else that you experience in your so-called life is a real experience of yourself. It's an imaginative experience. This is a real experience that's possible right now for all of us. We can recognize that we are not in imagination. We are not touched by imagination. We can be witness to imagination, see it happening presently. Again, allow your awareness to rest in the lower abdomen and be, if possible, be aware of the natural breath. Let the natural breath be natural. Don't force anything. Let the natural breath be as it is. At first, it may be exaggerated out of habit. It needs to unwind. Just let it unwind. Don't compare your idea of your experience to what you think it should be. Just allow it to be and observe. It will take you. This is what I said at the beginning. When we observe the agitation without latching on to our stories and running away or fighting with it, instead we really just observe. It's the thread that takes us to its source, which is this stillness, this silence, this presence that I am. This is a real experience. As you allow for the thread to take you to its source, the source that I am, you can see, as I'm describing, as I'm pointing to, that all of the arising impulses are not happening. They're not or to put it another way, they're only happening in imagination. You are not bound by imagination. The implications within imagination are quite profound, because this means that you have the ability to no longer energize the pathways of imagination that you find to be displeasing. At first, there will be resistance to that. At first, there will be doubt. You might scoff at that. Because you don't have the direct recognition of what I'm saying, maybe. Or it's not clear enough yet. But it becomes clearer and clearer. You can see that none of the things that you have believed that you were victim to, the pain, the discomfort, the struggle, the strain, all of the rules that you've had for yourself, you're not victim of any of that. All of your experience is in you. Nothing else exists. So certainly there's nothing else that can victimize you. Again, bring the attention to the lower abdomen. Just notice what's actually here. Notice that you have this capacity to unwind, to undo, to release, to surrender, to soften. You can, it's something you can actually perceive. You can, the same as you can perceive that when you are taking action, when you are moving, you can actually perceive the release, the surrender. It's a skill that you can develop. You can become more skilled at surrender. It's a useful skill. It's a useful skill when you realize what you really want. What you really want is to know who you are. What you really want is to live from that stillness, because that's where all that you desire comes from. So this exploration, which the conditioned mind has so many objections to, is the most valuable thing that we can do. If we're going to do anything, this is the most valuable, because it's revealing to us what it is that we really want, where that is, and what's necessary to attain it. Now allow for your awareness of the body to expand slowly, so that you're aware not only of the lower abdomen, but also of the lower back and the buttocks and the thighs. Notice that you can be aware, perhaps, maybe, of this subtle breath. that is moving through all of these parts of the body. It's so gentle and subtle that it doesn't, that any movement that it makes is subtle. But you can perceive how it gently softens and releases any unnecessary effort if you allow it. You can continue to expand the awareness to include the knees, the lower legs, the feet, the chest, the upper back, shoulders and arms, hands, the throat, the neck, the jaw, the nose, the eyes, the whole skull, the whole body. You can now perceive the whole body, and perceiving also this very gentle, subtle, natural, uncontrolled breath that so lightly and gently moves through the whole body and softens and releases wherever there is unnecessary effort, so that you don't even have to do it. All you need to do is just surrender. Make no effort. And if the eyes have been closed, then begin to slowly explore opening the eyes. As usual, do so without disturbing the awareness of this stillness, the awareness of this subtle breath. See that you can open the eyes without introducing any unnecessary strain in the body. Really observe that you can open the eyes without moving the tongue, without moving the jaw, without tensing up in the forehead or the skull. Let the scalp be very soft all the way to the back of the head as you gently open the eyes. So as has been the case for the last several days, this has been very been a deep inquiry. So it's extra important to be gentle. Otherwise, maybe you would find that you would perceive you were extra agitated. So to make it easier for yourself and nicer for yourself, Just be very gentle. Don't move too suddenly. Don't hold yourself rigidly either. So you're free to move. You're free to do everything. But just do it with awareness so that you're not flinging yourself about. If you just move and act with awareness, then you will start to recognize the benefits of this inquiry in your daily life. That's my intention, is that we can all recognize and receive the benefits of this in our daily lives so that we can move with greater ease. We can respond with greater ease, with greater clarity. We can be in relationship with greater ease and clarity. We can experience greater pleasure in our lives, in our daily lives, in all of the things in our lives, so that all of the conditions that we thought needed to be in order for us to be okay, for us to be happy, we can be okay and be happy anyway, even without those conditions. And then maybe we find that those conditions manifest anyway, but we didn't need them. We don't need them. We don't need anything from anybody else. We don't need anybody else to do anything differently, because we're recognizing what it is that we really want, where that is, and we're recognizing that it's unconditional. We just overlooked it when we were leaping without looking. So for those who are watching the recording, I'm going to end the recording. Thanks for joining. Please be very gentle. And for those who are here live, we'll stay on.